Together we can mobilize a global mission force to finish the task. This is your tribe.
Okay, welcome to This is Your Tribe, hosted by Ray Payne, and I am the collaboration director of Global Mobilization Network. And today we have our very best and the one, the only Steve Shadrach with us. Steve had been involved with mobilization efforts at the global scale for a number of years, and also one of the founders, the early days when we had this idea of a global mobilization network, Steve had been involved, and he is the former director of the Center for Mission Mobilization. Now is the ambassador. I believe that's the title for Center for Mission Mobilizations globally. So, Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Ray. Great to be on the program, and I'm honored to participate, brother.
Hey, thank you very much for your time, especially now for me, it's pretty late in the evening, but it's just getting started for you, so it's pretty early. But I have been to your office, I've been to your beautiful town in Arkansas, and I really enjoy the company, especially you have been, taking care of me so wonderfully and take me to the campus and also to the your new office, and I really enjoyed the company was all this strong-minded mission, like-minded mission mobilizers. So can you just tell me a little bit about the journey and how we have this Center for Mission Mobilization as a ministry, but also how they developed into that kind of mission mobilization effort instead of just an organization or mission ministry of any kind?
Yeah. Well, my background really is with campus ministry, Ray. I came to Christ right before I went to college, and I went to college and joined a fraternity and lived in a fraternity house in the United States for 3 years. It's kind of a giant social club, and so I kind of learned how to lead guys to Christ that were kind of big partiers and hellions, and how to disciple them. I was dramatically impacted by Campus Crusade crew and the Navigators. And so what does it mean to lead people to Christ? What does it mean to make disciples? And so I thought that was really the measure of a successful, mature Christian. But I had someone challenge me to take the Perspectives course in 1985. I had finished seminary. I had gone back to the church in my college town at the University of Arkansas, and I was the college pastor. And I thought I knew everything. Of course, I'd been to seminary. Don't you know everything after you go to seminary? And I thought, certainly I'm the Billy Graham and the Bill Bright and the Dawson Trotman of the world. I think I've got all that down. But the Perspectives class was such an eye-opener for me. My wife and I took the intensive in the summer of 1985. And by the end of that course, I had realized I was missing a huge, huge part of the Great Commission. And so, yes, I had the evangelism part down, the disciple-making part, but the third component, really, of the Great Commission, I had missed, mission mobilization. So I kind of developed this EDM, acronym: evangelism, disciple making, mission mobilization. So it changed everything. It connected the dots. And I came back to Arkansas, and we started developing Perspectives courses. We didn't even hardly have them in the South. There were only 20 of them across the country. So we started developing them across the state of Arkansas, in Oklahoma. We started helping groups in Texas and Missouri and others. So it started kind of regionally developing the Perspectives class. That really set us on a course. It really challenged us. And so I realized I wasn't a church pastor, but I loved college students. And so we actually started an organization called Student Mobilization, STUMO. And it included not just evangelism, not just disciple making, but let's place staff people on campuses all over the South Central United States. And we were going to see each of those college campuses as a launching pad, as a sending base. to mobilize students to the nation. So that's really kind of been the genesis. But, you know, people around me know that I can start something, but if you leave me in charge too long, we might be in trouble. You know, that kind of person, you know, they're a starter and not necessarily a long-term developer. And so I turned student mobilization over to a next generation leader. And about the year 2000, we started a new work, and ultimately we called it Center for Mission Mobilization. We said, let's take what we've learned in mobilizing American college students, and let's take what we've learned over the last 15 years. Let's see if we can mobilize people all over the world, not just college students. Yes, college students, but what about, you know, the other 98% of the world's population that aren't college students around the world? And so we've been trying to figure that out for, you know, 21 years now. Through the Center for Mission Mobilization, how, you know, region by region, country by country, do we help serve the body of Christ there to raise up, train, fund, send out workers? And so, and we've been creating resource ministries to help that, to equip and help be successful in the raising up and sending out of workers to the unreached. That's really what our ultimate goal is how do we get more workers, Great Commission workers, to the unreached?
Yeah. So, but you know, because I've been involved with your ministry for a number of years now, and I started to like really appreciate your. There are quite a few things that I observed and I really appreciated, which is number one, the free materials. You know, because if you're taking a course, sometimes there's a royalty somewhere, and the ownership is mine. But if you want to do it, you know, it's either my way or no way. But for example, like Explore and also Go Mobilize and quite a few other things. Like lately, you have this new initiative for Christian parents mobilizing their children and Sunday school kids, the Wheat family and many others. But you translate and into other languages and also help others to understand. They can also use it and become a facilitator themselves. So, and also at the same time, you send people to different parts of the world and work with the locals and really appreciate the ownership of the global South and also the majority world. And I think that's new. I think that's also not easy. I would say put it, you know, not in a very strong word. It's not easy because, you know, often we still want to have the ownership. Often we still say, oh, this is the quality is very important and you need to do it my way. So how does that come about? How does that come about? And maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Well, we've had this Great Commission for almost 2,000 years. Americans, you know, we think we're the solution to everything, which is obviously just pure arrogance on our part. But we've been sending out foreign missionaries since 1812. And you'd think with all of our entrepreneurship and all of our technology and all of our, you know, we would have had, you know, the Great Commission would have been fulfilled by now. And yet we still have, you know, well over 2 billion people cut off from the gospel. And so, you know, one definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. And so we've got to look at the Great Commission differently than we've ever looked at it before. And so we're trying to look outside the box here. Yeah. And our thinking, Ray, is that, you know, the last 40 years, Dr. Ralph Winter has been spearheaded a lot of the initiatives on this, but we've been researching the unreached people groups around the world. Well, we know now where all the unreached people groups are. Now it's time for us to research where the unsent people groups are around the world.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And so now we think the key to the Great Commission is somehow serving the body of Christ in each of these countries, in Latin America, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, you know, country by country, and saying, how can we come and serve? We're not in charge, you're in charge, but is there some way we can serve? Because we know you as a national leader, we know you have a vision and passion for fulfilling the Great Commission. Acts 1:8 applies to you just like it applies to any other believer. And so how can we help you identify, raise up, train, get funded, and send workers yourself to the unreached? And so we think that's the key to fulfilling the Great Commission, is country by country, the body of Christ in that country taking full, complete responsibility for the Great Commission. And that means the raising up and the sending and the funding of workers from their country to these unreached groups. And we're trying to help match up what would make sense. You know, if you're raising up workers from Brazil, if you're raising up workers from Rwanda, if you're raising up workers from Indonesia, you know, what would make sense geographically and culturally, you know, to get your workers to particular areas of the world that are in somewhat close proximity to where you are. And so we're trying to match up the major unsent regions of the world to the major unreached regions of the world. And we're even helping a number of countries, if there's not a sending agency that is really an excellent indigenous agency led by nationals that is really excellent and got all the pieces functioning in it, you know, well, let's help you start one. I've gotten to help myself, you know, a particular country start a mission agency, and it's going great. You know, they're doing super. And so we think let's think outside the box. How do we fulfill this Great Commission, maybe in our generation, in light of us having it for 2,000 years, and we still have billions of people still cut off from the gospel? There's something wrong with this picture, you know.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's really interesting when you talk about unreached people groups, they especially you know, for the last 40 years, I would say we use like linguistic barriers or social linguistic or geographic political boundaries to say, oh, here's an enriched people group here in Uzbekistan, and there are people from Uyghurs and others, and there are like 2,000 people here there. But with global trends like today, it's really hard to really identify where they are now, and there will be always more with the current situation with refugees and wars and other things and immigrants. So it's getting harder and harder to really identify, and also at the same time, there are always new UPG somewhere just pop out. It was like a never-ending task. But also people will say, well, you know, you need to look at things differently, and that have been the conversation for the last decade, I would say. And how do you see that?
Well, I think one initiative we've taken on, Ray, and I'm with the Center for Mission Mobilization, CMM, and we've probably been working on it now for 10 years. We call it the Mobilization Index, and we've hired researchers from, you know, Joshua Project and Operation World and other groups and so forth. And we've been doing all these research and demographics on all the, and so we've identified the 57 countries in the world that have over 1 million evangelicals. And we're trying to do all kinds of research on those countries to try to discern what are some of the keys to raising up and mobilizing believers. These are where the pockets of believers are. This is where the sleeping giants are. This is where the unsent peoples are. And so the major characteristic that I think is the most important one is, what is the number of evangelicals in that country versus the number of long-term missionaries that they've sent out. And so the bigger the gap, the bigger the need and opportunity to mobilize that country. If there's millions and millions of evangelicals, but we can only find 2,000 missionaries that they've sent out, well, gosh, the need, the opportunity, the gap is huge there. And so that's really, so we're trying to help mission agencies all over the world and ministries to be able to use that index to discern, should we be sending missionaries to this country, or should we be sending mobilizers to this country? And if you get that mixed up, if you keep sending missionaries to a country with all these Christians, you literally are hurting more than helping, because you're continuing to reinforce in their mind that they are a mission field in need of money and missionaries and so forth, when in fact, no, they need to have a transformation and no longer view themselves as a mission field, but as a radical new missions force.
I totally agree, and I do believe that. Because I've been on different fields for the last I will say 6-7 years, and this is the mentality is so strong that we are at the receiving end instead of the sending end. And when you look at countries like Kenya, for example, like China, for example, you know, the churches are very strong, and people are really picking up the idea like we can actually do something, but that, you know, that there's still hindrance, you know, saying, oh, we don't look like missionaries. So here comes the turn of frontier mobilizers, and especially I think it's invented by the CMM and being used by CMM mostly. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we're trying to create a role, that a valid role, a legitimate role in the body of Christ, you know, that they would accept and embrace. Missionaries, everyone, you know, we've grown up understanding the role of a missionary, and yet the role of a mobilizer, what in the world is that? You know, that's hard to explain to people. And
hey,
you've experienced that, haven't you?
So that's why we need to have this program. So this is our tribe, because we are all in this tribe. We are mobilizers.
Well, that's one reason we started the Global Mobilization Network and the GMC, the consultation, is because let's see if we can pull together these frontier mobilizers from all over the world, and to give them some identity, give them some family, a tribe, you know, and to try to help all of us understand who we are, what our identity is, what our role and calling is. And it is unique in the body of Christ. Missionaries, you know, frontier missionaries go to unreached people groups. They leave their culture to go into unreached people groups. A frontier mobilizer leaves their country, their family, and so forth, to go to an unsent people group. So both the missionary and the mobilizer, they leave the comforts of their family and everything, and home and country, to go to a different country, a different culture, a different group, to either, if they don't have the gospel, let's send missionaries. If they do have the gospel, let's send mobilizers. And so that's the idea of the frontier missionary, the frontier mobilizer. Both make sacrifices, but their target and their objective is different than the normal missionary or the normal mobilizer.
So since you have covered a little bit about CMM, and I think because we are CMM, so you know, can you share us a bit more about the history and the background? Because on the website it says, you know, the effort had been, under the conversation had been started like 10-20 years ago. So how does that come about?
Right, on the CMM, Center for Mission Mobilization?
No, I'm talking about GMN, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. You know, I actually went on staff along with my other duties with the U.S. Center for World Missions in 2004. And one of my duties was to take over the perspectives class and to really, you know, develop that and grow that. And so we started adding staff and raising funds and you know, trying to grow it across the U.S. And then they said, will you take the global perspectives over too? So we did, and we started raising money to do translations, major translations around the world, and placing staff around the world. And so we were thrilled for about 8 years to take on the perspectives course and really try to grow it and develop it. And so we had created some national perspectives conferences here in the U.S. Steve Hawthorne and Bruce Cook and others had developed some regional conferences for perspectives in other parts of the world. And so as we were trying to brainstorm, how do we get perspectives into, other countries, other cultures? And as we were starting to, as an organization, CMM, I had these two hats. I was wearing the U.S. Center Mobilization Division Director's hat with perspectives, and I was wearing this hat with directing and growing the CMM, Center for Mission Mobilization. But we just said, how do we're starting to raise up and identify these different mobilizers around the world. Let's create something that would really be an encouragement to them. Let's raise a bunch of money to get them there for travel expenses and for scholarshiping them, and let's put on an excellent program, and let's see if we can pull the perspectives program in with it. Let's see if we can kind of have a little bit of a regional perspectives gathering for the 2 days before this consultation. And so 2013 was our first experiment there in Surabaya, Indonesia, and it was a great time. We tried to pull in the Kairos leadership. Their founder Max and I roomed together there in Surabaya. That was fun to spend several days getting to know him. What a great man and a great ministry Kairos is. And so that was the birth. We said, let's come up with a name. Let's come up with a name: Global Mobilization Network. Let's come up with a name of the event: Global Mobilization Consultation. And let's raise enough money to really make this a first-class thing. And so they wanted to host it there in Surabaya. There was a prominent pastor, Pastor Andreas, there that I'm very close to. Yeah. And so they had a big mall there that we had it in, and it was a fantastic inaugural event. And we just said, wow, we had such a great turnout from all these different countries, all these different mobilizers. And let's keep doing this every other year. And the perspectives group kind of dropped out. I mean, we didn't really, I'm trying to think if the next year we actually try to do that regional perspectives thing, but we wanted to pull them in. We wanted to pull in perspectives, regional, international leaders.
2015 was in Kenya, Nairobi, and then it was in Dubai. Yeah, I think in Kenya, the perspective is still, they join it again, but not in Dubai.
Right. That's right.
But we have another one in Brazil 2 years ago. And it was perspective altogether. Yeah. But I do believe that the picture just grow bigger. It's not just perspective anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, we finally in 2012 perspectives moved back, to the U.S. Center, and I was no longer on staff. I could focus now just on CMM and not try to wear these two hats. It was kind of confusing for us, confusing for them, and so as painful as it was to kind of officially separate and let them take perspectives, from that point on, and let me just focus on this. I think it was the right thing. But what we realized, Ray, is perspectives is a great tool, but we didn't want to we didn't feel like our role was to spend all this time, all this money, all this staff to administrate it and manage it and so forth. We just wanted to use the tool out across the planet. We wanted to use the tool, but we also realized there's other tools besides perspectives. Yeah. And so there's Kairos. There's the Explore booklet. I mean, there's different categories and phases and aspects of getting this idea of God's heart for the nations into people's minds and hearts. Yeah. So let's use perspectives as a tool across the planet, but let's not feel like we've got to be the ones that administers it and manages it and organizes it. We're kind of doers. We're mobilizers. We're practitioners out there. I didn't want to be all our people behind cubicles as administrators,
Yeah, but that's also very hard to to really get to the very bottom of everything, because you when you're mobilizing people, so you say people say, oh, the easiest way is you do it, and you do it for us, instead of you're coaching and training the trainers, and people just want to wait there and say this, 6-year experience, and you have all the money, so you come here and teach us what you
That's
know.
right.
And
Yeah, we
that's
can't do that
that's
anymore.
that's very convenient. But tell us a bit more about GMN, how people start to have this idea and actually appreciate working together. And of course, this is a very young movement, and we're still developing. And I'm trying to get to know more about it, and also about the history, and also the possibilities for future. So how do you see that?
Well, when they asked me to be the mobilization director for the U.S. Center, I said yes, as long as I can, stay living in Fayetteville and keep directing this other ministry, as long as we can recruit staff and recruit money. And they agreed to all those things. And I said, also, as long as we can put Dave Flynn in charge of the U.S. perspectives, and we could put Matt Burns in charge of the of global perspectives. And they agreed to both those things. And so, you don't really want to put me in charge of anything, Ray. I'm just kind of
You're a pioneer.
I'm just kind of an encourager. I can dream with you, I can pray with you, I can pat you on the back, I can, let's go do it, brother. So Dave Flynn is the one who really grew and developed the perspectives class all over the U.S. I mean, we were up to 10,000 people a year and 250 classes. And then Matt Burns, I mean, that guy, he took the perspectives class and he raised hundreds of thousands of, maybe $1 million, I don't know, to get, the Chinese translation, for instance, of the perspectives class. If you knew how much time and money we spent on that translation alone, and so it just I'm just saying that boy, we were able to grow it and develop it, I think, in the 19 countries at the time. And so we just said, and it was, a lot of it was conversations with Matt Burns and I, but we said, how do we get these individuals that we know now? We've got this growing list of mobilizers, the Ray Pings of the world, country by country by country. Let's serve them. Let's connect them. Let's figure out a way to pull them together and give them this vision, this identity as frontier mobilizers. And let's raise a ton of money. We raise hundreds of thousands of dollars, and let's rotate it. Let's rotate it from continent to continent every 2 years, so that if it's in Africa, well, yeah, we're going to have more Africans going to be able to get to it. If it's in Asia, well, yeah, we're going to be able to have more. If it's in Sao Paulo, Brazil, well, yeah, we're going to be able to get more Latins there,
Yeah.
And so let's rotate it every 2 years, and let's bring in, let's create speakers and workshops, and then at some point we said, let's get the CMM out of this, where it's just our deal. Let's make it a real global. Let's create a leadership team, and of course, there's TB Thomas, to me, was the perfect person to kind of get this thing off. He's such a respected older leader that people could look to and not say, oh, that's Shadrach, or that's Hawthorne, or that's Perspectives, or that's CMM, or no. Well, let's create a neutral leadership team. There was international leaders. Let's put someone like a TV Thomas, as the leader. And so I think it was in Kenya, there at Nairobi, that we kind of first said, let's create this leadership group. Let's create this network. Let's put TV in charge of it. And I think he's done a great job to kind of kick this thing off. I know he's turned it over to the next generation leader, but and so the CMM plays a lot of the administrative roles behind the GMN, a lot behind the GMC, the consultation. We've raised a lot of the money, and our tech people and our graphics people and stuff, do a lot of the behind the scenes work. But it's really you and TV and others on that leadership team that have really designed and pushed this thing forward. And so we're thrilled to kind of give leadership and ownership over to this international group. We trust you guys, and we believe in you guys.
Yeah, I think the collaboration is really highly appreciated. I think for the at least for the last 4 years, my involvement with CMN and also the partnership with CMN, I think have been it's quite a joy. It's really rare. I want to ask you about this. What is so important to work together? What is so important that we have this mutual respect? Because we can all say beautiful things about one another, but that requires a real sacrifice to a certain degree. Sometimes is finance, sometimes is pride, sometimes is the ownership. So what is so important?
Well, I'm kind of a John Maxwell fan. He's written a lot of great stuff on leadership, and he has one particular book called Failing Forward, not falling, but
Yes.
failing forward.
Mm.
And I can relate to that. I can relate to that concept. And on page one, he says, you'll never accomplish anything of significance apart from a team.
Mm.
And yeah, we can operate individually and think we're some sort of superstar, but no, it's got to be a team effort if we're going to really be significant and successful. And so we're a neutral organization, right? We're not a sending agency ourselves. Our goal is to serve the body of Christ. My title is Global Ambassador.
Mm.
And so I'm just serving we're in 20 countries, and we're trying to get to these top 50. We got these top 50 that we're trying to get to, but we're in 20. Mm. But so I'm serving our own ministries, international, these national leaders in all these countries. But I get to serve other ministries in other countries. That's just what I'm doing. And so I'm successful if they're successful.
Yes.
And so I think God has given us all kinds of great leaders like a Dave Flynn, a Matt Burns, a Ryan Emus, a John Patton, a Dave Rothkar, a Ray Ping, the list goes on, a Taraku, and on and on and on. Names, Jason Gardner, names of people and men and women, Carissa Potter and others that say everything that we do, everything that we create, we're giving it away to these national leaders around the world. And our success is based upon your success. If you're successful, that means we're successful. And so it's just a different measurement of success.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a different view of success. It's one definition of a servant is getting excited about making other people successful.
That's right.
So I think we derive our greatest joy, our greatest purpose, and greatest value when we see other leaders, especially in other countries and other cultures, that they're successful. And we've gotten to be behind the scenes, kind of secret backseat helpers. That brings great joy to us.
Yeah.
But as long as our hands are on the steering wheel, as long as we're in charge, we're not going to have multiplication. It kind of gets down to, are you into addition or are you into multiplication?
Yeah.
And addition's not going to reach the world for Christ. Only multiplication, when you reproduce yourself over and over and over again, and what you're reproducing is reproducers.
Yeah.
Who will also reproduce over and over again. That's the only way we're going to reach the world.
I think my last question is very practical in terms of current world situation, in terms of COVID and many other things, travel lockdowns and vaccinations, and a lot of politics involved with a global pandemic and a lot of other things. It's all mixed together. We were planning to have another global mobilization consultation, supposed to be the end of this year. Apparently, it's not going to take place. A lot of things coming to become Zoom calls and another conference after another. People start to get fatigued. People really need to move, relocated to different places. I think CMM staff got a big hit. I think especially for those guys who live in some creative access countries. They it's just start with a vacation, and then the door, the gate closed, and and never got back. The furnitures are still there, all these things, and I got to know these people. It's hard. And what do you think there's a lesson from God at this moment, and how do you see our future lives?
Well, this past 18 months, to me, humanly speaking, has been devastating to missions and mobilization, to campus ministry, to, I think Satan has gotten a major stroke. That verse in 1 John was one of Dr. Winter's life verses, that Christ came to destroy the works of the devil, and I see so much of the disease that the virus has caused, so much of the politics, so much of the culture wars that we're experiencing around the world. So many Great Commission workers have either been pushed out or locked out from their ministry assignments, or they've got caught up. They've gotten caught up in all the politics and the culture wars and and they really lost their focus of the Great Commission. And so one of our goals, one of our CMM ministries, I'll put a plug into it that I get to kind of spearhead, is CMT, Campus Ministry Today. If our followers here that are watching or listening wanted to go to campusministry.org, you could kind of see what we're doing, but I'm trying to help the collegiate body of Christ, country after country after country, to kind of get back to the Great Commission. If you've taken an exit ramp or you've been blocked, let's get back on the road. We think college students are some of the most recruitable, trainable, sendable category of persons on the planet. And so where do these future workers going to come from? And so let us help you. Let us serve you from afar, or let us come to your country and serve you. And so so many workers have left the mission field, have left the college campuses, have left the ministry. So many ministries have kind of gotten off track, and now they're going down some, racial justice or gender issues or political things or vaccine or anti-vaccine, or it's all kinds of strange things that I'm not saying they're not important, but whatever happened to the Great Commission? Whatever happened to the Great Commission? Where did that go? We've got to somehow help the body of Christ to wake up, to realize we've been on some exit ramps here. So we've let the enemy deceive us. Let's get back on the road here, and let's major on the majors. EDM, evangelism, disciple making, mission mobilization. And so that's really one of the things the CMM is trying to serve the body of Christ country by country, and doing that. That's one of the things that I'm getting to spearhead as a global ambassador, is this campusministry.org, is how do we get the collegiate body of Christ also back on track. I will say this. One of our resource ministries that of, Ray, is called Support Raising Solutions. Yeah. And you'd think that giving would take a hit around the world because of COVID, because of all the culture wars we seem to be in and stuff. No, the people of God, the body of Christ, they want to give. Don't let any of your listeners, any of your followers think that there's some limitation in God's heavenly bank, because there's more being given right now than ever before. And so if the greatest need is for laborers, is what Jesus said in Matthew 9, we've discovered that one of the greatest obstacles of getting those laborers spread out across the planet is funding. Well, do not let funding determine your vision. Do not let funding determine your calling. Don't let it block it at all. We can train you. We can help you. And you can go to supportraisingsolutions.org and find out how we can train you to raise your full support and to fulfill the vision and calling and ministry that God has for you in your country, in your region, among your people, And so there's really no excuse. We have the command. of the Great Commission and to raise up laborers, but now we're going to try to help you and equip you and serve you to be successful in doing that.
Steve, I'm very encouraged, and thank you very much for your time. And I'm a big believer in mission mobilization. Also, at the same time, I'm a big believer in support raising. I think it's not something radical. It's normal, and it's it's the God ask. It's not just about us asking money from people. It's where the resource is, where it need to be vision driven, and also whatever we do is for one purpose and one purpose only: is God to be glorified and His name to be known. Thank you very much, Steve, for your time, and I think we will learn a lot from you. And just pray for you and the future path, and especially your health as well. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Yeah. Oh, one last word. What do you want to say to our mobilizers around the world? And a word of encouragement.
I love you all. I admire you all. I respect you all so much. And when I get to be with you, I enjoy you so much. That's one thing about, this is our tribe. When we get together, it's so much fun. It's so enjoyable. There's so much energy and synergy that's shared among us. And so just know, please know that here's an old man in America that loves you and admires you and prays for you and respects you and yearns for the next opportunities we have to get together. And if there's any way at all that we can serve, any way at all that we can be of help, we would be honored. We would be honored. You must increase and we must decrease. It's your turn. It's your turn to take the lead and to take the ball, take the baton, and run with it. And you're the leaders. You're the leaders. And so we want to serve you as the leaders, the worldwide leaders, as you lead this effort out and finish the Great Commission. So.
Praise the Lord. I think what I appreciate you the most is, Shad, actually you did and you still does, you still does, which is to walk the talk, and you have showed that example to many of us, especially me. Appreciate your time.